Caitlin, Angel, Paige, like players come in with the sort of money that they're making, the attention, everything. It's a lot for a young person.
Look, it's just too much for a young person to handle when players like Caitlin, Angel, and Paige enter the league with all that money and attention. Furthermore, the WNBA is currently in complete disarray, which is absurd. Sydney Colson, a player, has revealed something shocking that no one anticipated. Colson went on and revealed the league's startling anti-Caitlin Clark agenda, according to her. And believe me, she isn't hiding anything. Her remarks, which reveal a side of the WNBA that most of us never ever thought possible, have genuinely shocked fans, players, and even officials. So, what covert scheme was in place behind closed doors? We're delving into Sydney Colson's shocking disclosure today and the reasons for her unwavering refusal to remain silent. Now, Sydney Colson's 2024 campaign wasn't your typical basketball season. This amazing full-circle experience truly demonstrated her courage, strong faith, and willingness to forego comfort in order to progress. To be honest, everyone anticipated she would continue to play for the Las Vegas Aces after she won 2 championship rings with them. Why wouldn't she? She had incredible connection with her best buddy, A.A. Wilson, and was on a championship squad. Here's the problem, though. Amid all of the attention and festivities, Colson sensed a stirring inside herself. She was told it was time to go on by this gentle, insistent voice. She wasn't led to a familiar court or another simple victory by that voice. Instead, it drew her in the direction of a challenge, the Indiana Fever, a squad that was completely rebuilt. A lot of individuals were left perplexed by the approach. Why would a player who has 2 rings and is unquestionably a veteran leave the dynasty she helped create? However, Colson didn't care about comfort or awards. It all came down to purpose. Fans saw the humor in her now famous Instagram message, genuinely enjoyed this team and what we did on the court and in the showers, but few understood the true meaning behind it. At her writing, Colson described how she simply felt God was placing her at the right place for her to develop and learn. It was more than simply a lovely quote. It was the real deal. She could really feel herself being drawn into an awkward situation, not because she wanted to, but because she had no choice. It was not at all an easy decision to leave Las Vegas. She had been promised stability, wonderful friendships, and another opportunity at success by the Aces. However, it wasn't just another discussion when the Indiana Fever's head coach Stephanie White and general manager Amber Cox called. For her, it truly seemed more like a calling. They weren't only speculating about her playing time or statistics. They were giving her a far more profound opportunity to coach younger players, help create a culture, and be a part of something that was still figuring itself out. Colson was aware that being comfortable did not lead to true progress. Later on, she even acknowledged that she felt God was forcing her into that discomfort. And she raced directly into it rather than battling it. The true lesson was concealed there, isn't it? Because sometimes the greatest triumphs don't take place in front of the bright lights of the stadium. They take place in the quiet places where uncertainty and faith converge. The media attempted to portray her choice as being only motivated by money or playing time. But Colson's response was straightforward. It wasn't fame, but faith. And as the season progressed, her leap of faith grew into something far greater than anybody could have predicted. There was sheer resiliency, laughing, and mentoring in that locker room. It was a house founded on more than simply history. What, then, was the true factor that persuaded Sydney Colson to abandon everything she had created in order to start over in Indiana? Okay. Therefore, it was more than just adding Sydney Colson to the Indiana Fever's roster when they reached out to him. In reality, it included radically altering the culture of their whole workforce. With Amber Cox at the forefront, the front office had a very specific and well-thought-out goal. Stats weren't all they were after. Their search was for a spark. Someone who could strike a balance between such harsh realities and humor. Someone who could be upbeat while still enforcing rules. And Colson was just the spark they needed with her amazing energy, sharp wit, and championship mentality. She was even characterized by Cox as the kind of player who could set an example and lead by laughing. Someone who has the ability to truly make a bunch of young athletes into a family. The fact that Indiana desired her, however, wasn't what really startled everyone. It was that she did say yes. Colson, one of A.A. Wilson's closest friends and the winner of 2 championships, might have easily maintained his comfort level in Las Vegas. The Aces were stable, dominant, and well-known. She didn't actually hesitate long, though, when Indiana phoned. It wasn't even a sensible move. It required a whole leap of faith. She subsequently acknowledged that no one had anticipated her presence. She went just for that reason. From the outside, the Fever was frequently disregarded as an organization that was having trouble getting its bearings. However, Colson noticed something quite different, something that could only be identified by a purpose-driven leader. She saw unbridled potential that was simply awaiting the correct catalyst to mold it. She thought that if she could assist in altering the team's internal view, she might also alter how the outside world perceived them. Comfort or attention were not the motivations for this action. This was a transformational moment for the team as a whole, as well as for her individually. What's even more shocking is that her choice rocked the WNBA. Colson wasn't just a seasoned player who changed uniforms. She was essential to the AC's success, and the league as a whole was taken aback by her departure. Fans began discussing the meaning of it all in whispers. In reality, was she abandoning the Aces? Was she really placing all of her money on a rebuilding squad led by rookie sensation Caitlin Clark? It was clearly not taken lightly by the old guard. Although it nearly seemed like a betrayal to them, Colson was unfazed. Just a little. Sydney had the quintessential response when asked how she dealt with all the negativity that followed her transfer. Audacious, carefree, and really funny. "I used to just troll them back," she remarked with a giggle. "You can't hurt my feelings if I don't even know you." That mindset essentially encapsulated her whole strategy. She was utterly focused on her goal, unfazed by the ruckus, and confident in who she was. A veteran joining a rookie squad at a time when so many were dismissing Caitlin Clark as too much or unprepared was perceived by some as a subtle revolt. The notion that no seasoned player would like to share the floor with Clark was seriously called into question. Colson, however, disproved such narratives rather than merely ignoring them. She welcomed Clark warmly and humorously from her very first news conference. She described the entire event as unique and crazy, praising how Clark's visit had immediately energized the city and drawn spectators from around the nation to the Fever games, both on and off the court. There was just no denying their chemistry. Their amusing interactions on the internet, their mutual respect, and their laughing during sessions truly began to change the narrative. However, Colson took an even more audacious step right when everyone believed they had everything worked out. It wasn't simply another veteran move when Sydney Colson joined the Indiana Fever. A stealthy insurrection was placed. To be honest, she completely dispelled the rumored assumption that she would just follow the league's mounting anti-Clark attitude by welcoming Caitlin Clark right away. Politics was not the reason Colson came. Since the first day she arrived in Indiana, she has worked to build bridges. Her presence delivered a powerful message that unity is more important than divide. And eventually, the entire Fever locker room would be defined by that intensity, not just her connection with Clark. Colson noticed something far more human, while the rest of the world was only enthralled with Caitlin's record-breaking shots and sponsorship agreements. She understood the enormous burden that comes with fame, the type that most rookies never have to carry because of her years of championship experience. Everybody else witnessed a celebrity. Sydney, however, witnessed a 22-year-old attempting to strike a balance between brilliance and shame. She saw how every expectation, every camera flash, and every headline pressed against the young guard like armor that Caitlin never requested to wear. She's dealing with a lot. Colson once acknowledged that the attention, the money, and the celebrity are too much to handle. And Caitlin had someone at her side who genuinely understood for the first time. Colson turned into this calming presence, a true mentor amongst the turmoil of celebrity and performance demands. She was doing more than simply coaching Clark on the court. She was assisting her in surviving on it. Then came the setback that put everything to the test. Upon Clark's injuries, the surrounding cacophony increased even more. The WNBA's public face was abruptly compelled to observe from the sidelines. And even the most resilient sportsman can be severely damaged by that type of seclusion. Sydney, however, just would not allow it to occur. She kept Clark completely focused by reminding her that leadership isn't only about the scoreboard and urging her to speak up at team meetings. She advised not to squander this season, make advantage of it to grow and to connect. That advice ended up being a complete lifesaver. Colson made sure Clark maintained her spark while she struggled with frustration and the uncertainty of recovery. She urged her to laugh, to be lighthearted, to rediscover joy, and to find strength in silence. And gradually, an alternative aspect of Caitlin began to show herself, more tolerant, playful, and self-assured than before. Sydney Colson believed that being a leader meant more than just scoring points. It has to do with the rider you assisted. At that point, her actual impact started to become apparent. Now, the Indiana Fever could have completely collapsed when Caitlin Clark suffered an injury. It shook the team's momentum. Doubts began to sneak in from all sides, and the spotlight seemed even heavier. But one voice broke through all of that cacophony. Colson's in Sydney. She developed into an anchor that the team was unaware they would require, providing direction that extended well beyond basketball. Colson prevented Clark from viewing her absence from the court as a failure. Rather, she transformed it into a novel challenge. They frequently discussed leadership and how to have an influence on the squad even if you aren't able to run or score. Clark was reminded by Colson that being a leader involved more than simply scoring goals and executing spectacular moves. It was about being there, having an impact, and communicating clearly. She wanted you to speak up. Your voice may take the lead even if your body is unable to. She encouraged Clark to view her worth beyond the stat sheet, to build stronger relationships with her teammates, to comprehend their feelings, and to continue developing as a leader from the sidelines. What may have been a wasted season was changed by that direction into one of sincere introspection, solidarity, and peaceful development. Clark started to see that when all else is quiet, leadership frequently speaks loudly. Colson's leadership style, meanwhile, became the Fever's undisputed lifeblood within the locker room. She led with humor, compassion, and unwavering commitment rather than with vehement statements. She managed to transform pressure into sheer motivation and stress into laughing. Even when the odds were stacked against them, her ability to provide joy in the darkest situations allowed her teammates to play freely and breathe. The Fever season wasn't at all simple. Their resilience was put to the test by injuries, difficult defeats, and ongoing media attention. Adding new players in the middle of the season created even more upheaval. Colson, however, managed to keep everyone's attention on one another, which was what really important. She reminded the squad that their greatest strength was unity when the issues became difficult and supporters and commentators began to challenge them. She established genuine safety and trust in the locker room. Together, the athletes shared laughs, let off steam, and regained their self-confidence. Although it wasn't flawless, it was authentic. In fact,